Hello, my dear students. Welcome to my new lecture. In the last class, we discussed about nucleus, the properties of nucleus, the constituents of nucleus, about nuclear force, the nuclear stability, mass defect, and binding energy. In today's class, we will be discussing the decay of unstable nucleus, which is called radioactivity. So let's start with today's class. Now, radioactivity was first discovered by Henry Becquerel in uranium salts back in 1896. The self-spontaneous disintegration or decay, the word disintegration means decay, of unstable radioactive nucleus is known as radioactivity. The nuclei exhibiting such phenomena are called radioactive nuclei. So those nuclei which are unstable and decays are called radioactive nuclei. Now, after the discovery of radioactivity in uranium, Madame Curie discovered a new radioactive element, and this is called radium. Radium was approximately 10 raised to power 6 times more radioactive than uranium. Okay, radium was extracted from pitchblende, which is a kind of coal tar, for which Curie was honored Nobel Prize in 1903. Okay, what are some of the other examples of radioactive substances? So some examples of radioactive substances are uranium, radium, thorium, polonium, neptunium, etc. There are many other radioactive substances which can be unstable and they spontaneously decay. Lead, Z equal to 82, is the most stable element in the high atomic number elements. So among the higher atomic elements, the lead is most stable. Okay, that's why all radioactive elements emits radioactive radiation till they reach up to or till they convert up to lead. So all the unstable nucleus above lead, they spontaneously decay, and they decay up to the point when they try to reach up to lead. Okay, it's not necessary that they will reach up to lead, but they try to reach up to lead. Now, in radioactive decay, an unstable nucleus emits alpha particle or beta particle. So that means in a radioactive decay, how does this decay occurs? There is decay occurs by emission of certain particles. These particles are called alpha particles and beta particles. We will discuss about all these elementary particles in this class a bit later. Now, after emission of alpha particle or beta particle, the remaining nucleus may also emit certain radiations called gamma radiations, also called gamma particles, and convert the nucleus into more stable nucleus. We have discussed in the last class that sometimes nucleus are formed in an excited state, or you can say we discussed in the last class that the nucleus also have excited states just like atoms, right? Now, when this nucleus de-excites, it becomes a more stable nucleus. So whenever a nucleus de-excites, it emits gamma rays. Whenever atom de-excites, it emits UV rays, visible rays, X-rays. But when a nucleus de-excites, it emits gamma rays. Gamma rays is the most energetic electromagnetic radiation, and it is emitted when a nucleus, an excited nucleus, gets de-excited, right? Now, we will discuss about some of the fundamental particles of nature which will be useful in discussing radioactivity. The first fundamental particle is electron. Now, it is the first fundamental particle which was discovered by Thomson in 1897. We know that it revolves around the nucleus of an atom in different orbits. Okay, electron plays an important role in explaining the physical and chemical properties of substances. Its charge is minus 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 coulomb, and the mass is 9.1 into 10 raised to power minus 31 kg. Its symbol is E minus, or you can also write this as beta particles. So beta particles are also electrons. Beta particles, that is beta minus 1, are nuclear generated electrons. Nuclear generated electrons. That means beta particles are nothing but electrons. They are also electrons, but they are generated inside the nucleus. That is why they are called nuclear generated electrons. So we write beta particle to differentiate it from a normal electron which is revolving around the nucleus, that is which is revolving in the atom around the nucleus. Okay, the beta particles are also electrons, but they are generated inside nucleus. That is why we have named it differently as beta particle. Okay, but sometimes you also write this as E minus 1 0. These two are the same thing. Okay, the next fundamental particle is the proton. Proton was discovered by Rutherford in 1919 in artificial nuclear disintegration. It has a positive charge equal to the electronic charge of the electron, and its mass is 1.673 into 10 raised to power minus 27 kg, that is approximately 1840 times the mass of electron. Okay, in free state the proton is a stable particle. Proton is a stable particle even if it is free and it is not bound inside the nucleus. Now, neutron was discovered by Chadwick in 1932. So neutron was discovered much later compared to the electron and the proton. The neutron carries no charge, so it is electrically neutral. We have discussed about the properties of neutron before in my class. Okay, in the previous class we have discussed the properties of neutron. The mass of neutron is also approximately 1840 times the mass of electron, right? In free state the neutron is unstable. The free state In the free state the neutrons are not stable. Okay, the half-life is about 17 minutes, but it constitutes a stable nucleus along with its proton. Means whenever it gets inside the nucleus, it becomes stable, but free neutron is not stable. It has a half-life of 17 minutes. That means its concentration becomes half after every 17 minutes if it is in free state. Okay. The next elementary particle is a positron, which was discovered in 1932 by Anderson. Its charge and mass are same as the electron. So mass is same, charge is same. Only the difference is it is a positive charge. Okay. Now this is also called the beta plus particle. This is the beta plus particle. You will write it like this: beta plus 1 0. Okay. So the positron are beta plus particle. In fact, matter, see, electron and positron are matter and antimatter particle of each other, are matter and antimatter. So what are matter and antimatter? See, if a matter and its own antimatter collides, they destroy each other and converts to energy. Okay, so a matter and its own antimatter, when they collide, they destroy each other, annihilate each other, and they convert into energy. Okay, so electron and positron are such matter and antimatter pairs. There are many other matter and antimatter pairs, but the most important that will be useful for us is electron and positron. Okay, then the next important fundamental particle is antiproton, which was discovered in 1955. So as the name suggests, antiproton is antimatter of proton. Okay, its charge and mass are same as those of proton, only difference is it is negatively charged. Okay, then again there is one antineutron. It's the antiparticle of a neutron, which was discovered in 1956. It also does not have charge. Its mass is same as the mass of neutron. The only difference is between neutron and antineutron is that if they spin in the same direction, if a neutron and an antineutron spin in the same direction, the magnetic moment will be in the opposite direction. So if both the neutron and the antineutron suppose are revolving clockwise or spinning clockwise, in that case you will say that if one of them is having a magnetic moment in a particular direction, then the other will have a magnetic moment opposite to that direction. Okay, then the next elementary particle, the fundamental particle, is neutrino and antineutrino, which will be again very useful in this chapter. The existence of this particle was predicted back in 1930 by Pauling. Okay, while explaining the emission of beta particles, when he was explaining why the spectrum of beta minus decay is continuous, that we will discuss when we will discuss beta decay, he found out certain new particles are emitted when the beta decay is taking place, and he named these particles neutrino and antineutrino. Okay, so he named it, but actually the observation was made experimentally in 1956. Okay, their rest mass and charge are both zero. That means they do not have rest mass. That means they behave like photon. They are chargeless. That means they are neutral. That means they are not deflected by electric and magnetic field. Okay, both neutrino and antineutrino are stable particles. They are stable particles. The only difference between them is, again, they are matter and antimatter of each other. The only difference between them is that their spins are in opposite directions. Their spins are in opposite directions. The symbols are nu and nu bar. So if neutrino is nu, antineutrino is nu bar. Okay. Now, the next particle is pi meson particles. We have discussed in the last class that pi meson particles are responsible for nuclear force. There is an exchange of pi meson particles between nucleons so that they exert nuclear force on each other, right? The existence of this particle was predicted in 1935 by a Japanese scientist named Yukawa. Okay, as the originator of exchange force between the nucleons. I've told you this is the exchange force between the nucleons. The nuclear force is primarily because of these pi mesons particle. Okay, but they were actually discovered in 1947 in cosmic rays. Pi meson particles are of three types. One is the positive pi meson, one is the negative pi meson, and the other is the neutral pi meson. Okay, now all of these have approximately same mass, that is 274 times the mass of electron. Okay, now pi meson, positive pi meson is a positively charged particle, negative pi meson is a negatively charged particle, and a neutral pi meson is chargeless. Okay, so this is represented by pi plus, this is represented by pi minus, and this is represented by pi 0. Okay, this neutral pi meson, okay, this neutral pi meson, when it disintegrate, it forms two gamma ray photons. So neutral pi meson particle destroy itself, and it converts to radiation, that is photon, that is gamma ray photon, in fact two photons. Okay, next is photon. We know what is a photon, we have discussed so many times. These are the of electromagnetic energy and travel with speed of light. We know that, right? If the frequency of wave be nu, then the energy of this photon is h nu, and the momentum is h nu by c, or E by c, or h by lambda, whatever you want to write. The symbol is gamma. Okay, now we will start with the radioactive decay and displacement law. Okay, now we will first generalize for any radioactive reaction. Okay, suppose we have a nuclear reaction in which A plus B converts to C plus D. Now, what are the things that you have to remember in a radioactive displacement law? The first point is the charge number and the mass number is always conserved. That means the charge and mass number on the left hand side has to be equal to the charge and mass number on the right hand side. This is a very, very important rule. This has to be followed every time. So this rule is called the Soddy-Fajans displacement law. Okay. Now, the next point we have already discussed, the energy released in a nuclear reaction is called Q value. The energy which is getting released in a nuclear reaction is called Q value. Okay, and Q value is the mass of reactant nucleus minus the mass of the product nucleus into C square, that I've already told you in the last class. And you also know that if reactant has more mass, that means it has less mass defect, and the product has less mass, that means it has more mass defect, right? So Q is sometimes also written as mass defect of the product nucleus minus mass defect of the reactant nucleus into C square. But mass defect into C square is nothing but the binding energy, right? So the Q value of a nuclear reaction is also written as the binding energy of product nucleus minus the binding energy of reactant nucleus. The third important point is, this is very important. Now, how does this Q, with this Q value is the energy released, how this Q value or this energy manifests? This manifests in the form of kinetic energy of the daughter nucleus or the product nucleus. So that means this Q value is nothing but the kinetic energy of the product nucleus. So the energy released, that is the Q value, is in the form of the kinetic energy of the product nucleus. Also, if some elementary particle is released, the kinetic energy is also shared with the elementary particles. So again, I'll repeat, the kinetic energy is shared between the daughter nuclei and the elementary particles, that whatever that is emitted. Okay. Now, in a nuclear reaction, you must understand the energy alone is not conserved, because mass is getting decreased, right? And mass and energy are interconvertible. You will say like this: in a nuclear reaction, mass plus energy is conserved, because we know that in nuclear reaction, mass and energy are interconvertible. Now, if mass and energy are interconvertible, we'll say that mass alone is not conserved, energy alone is not conserved, but if you see them together, you will say that the mass plus energy is conserved. Okay? In a nuclear reaction, the momentum is always conserved. Everybody listen carefully this time. In a nuclear reaction, the momentum is always conserved. This is very important. The momentum in a nuclear reaction is always conserved. Suppose we write a simple nuclear reaction in which a radioactive particle A is getting decayed into two daughter nucleus B and C. Then initially this A was at rest, so its initial momentum was 0. Okay, its initial momentum is 0. Now, you know that B and C now have kinetic energy because the energy released is in the form of kinetic energy. So that means both B and C have some momentum, but the net momentum has to be 0. So if B is moving towards right, C has to be moving with equal momentum towards left. So you'll say PB minus PC is the net momentum, but the net momentum is 0. That means PB is equal to PC. So you can write it like this. You know that the momentum is equal to under root 2 mk, right? The momentum is equal to under root 2 mk. So you will say that under root 2 mbkb is equal to under root 2 mckc. Now when you square it, you will get kb by kc is equal to mc by mb. Now this is very important because this says that the kinetic energy is divided between B and C in the inverse ratio of mass. So whatever Q value is released, some of that energy is with this, the other is with this, right? Now, the energy is distributed between B and C in the inverse ratio of mass. So that means Kb by Kc is equal to Mc by Mb. Now we also know that Kb plus Kc is equal to Q. So when you solve this equation, this is just like 100 mangoes is divided between Ram and Sham in the ratio of suppose 2:3. Then Ram will get 2 by 2 plus 3 into 100, right? In the same way, here Q energy is to be divided between Kb and Kc in the ratio Mc by Mb. So you will say Kb will get how much? Kb will get Mc by Mc plus Mb into Q. Similarly, Kc will get Mb by Mc plus Mb into Q. Sometimes they can also ask you the ratio of velocity. This is the ratio of kinetic energy. They can also ask you the ratio of velocity. So you know that the momentum is same for both the particles, that is B and C, the daughter nucleus. So MbVb is equal to McVc. We will get Vb by Vc is equal to Mc by Mb. The velocity also distributes in the inverse ratio of mass. So kinetic energy divides in the inverse ratio of mass. Velocity also divides in the inverse ratio of mass. Okay. Now, the concept of nuclear excited states. Now, sometimes in a nuclear reaction, a nucleus formed is in its excited state. So what we mean here is that just like atoms, a nucleus also has excited state. We have already discussed this. Just like atoms, nucleus also have excited states. Okay, now there can be the first excited state, second excited state, third excited state, nth excited state. Okay, let the energy of the nth excited state with respect to the ground state is En. That means the energy of the nth excited state is En value more than the energy of the ground state. Okay, so the energy of the nth excited state of the nucleus is En value more than the ground state. The excited nucleus is represented by a star. So this is an excited nucleus. Okay. Then what we will say here is, you have to listen carefully now. A converts to B star plus C plus Q value. Q value is the energy released in the nuclear reaction. Okay. Now, whenever something de-excites, whenever atom de-excites, it emits radiation. Similarly, whenever nucleus de-excites, it emits radiations. This time the radiation emitted is called gamma rays. So nuclear de-excitation, the radiation that will be released or emitted is called gamma rays, okay, or gamma particles. Now, so like when atoms de-excite, it emits radiations. Whenever nucleus de-excites, it also emits radiation, and these radiations are called gamma rays. One more thing that we should understand here is that the energy that is released, the Q value. So this excited energy, so you know that the nucleus needs energy to get excited, right? The nucleus needs energy to get excited. Now this energy comes from the Q value only. Okay, so suppose En amount of energy is required to excite the nucleus. Then the kinetic energy that will be available for B and C is now Q minus En and not Q, because out of this Q value, some amount of energy is utilized for the excitation. So the remaining amount of energy is Q minus En, and that will be shared as the kinetic energy. So in this case, you will not say that Q value is shared as the kinetic energy, but you will say that Q minus En value is shared as the kinetic energy. So this time Kb will be equal to Mc by Mb plus Mc into Q minus En, and Kc will be equal to Mb by Mb plus Mc into Q minus En. Understood? Initially we were saying that the energy Q value is distributed in the form of kinetic energy. Now we will say that the energy Q minus En is distributed in the form of kinetic energy, and the reason being some amount of energy was required to excite the nucleus, and that energy came from this Q value only. Okay, now the first type of decay that we are going to discuss is called alpha decay. Now alpha decay means whenever a radioactive nucleus decays, it emits alpha particle, then such type of decay is called alpha decay. So let me write the nucleus reaction. XZA, suppose X is any unstable nucleus and it is disintegrating using alpha decay. So in that case, what will you say? See, one alpha particle means doubly ionized helium nucleus, right? So you will say He24 nucleus is released. But by Soddy-Fajans rule, we know that the net charge and the net mass number has to be conserved. So if the charge number here is Z, the charge number in the product has to be Z. Now if this is 2, this has to be equal to Z minus 2. Similarly, the mass number is conserved. Okay, so if this is 4, this has to be A minus 4. And obviously the Q value, that is the energy released. So in an alpha decay, you will say that the charge number changes by 2 or decreases by 2, and the mass number decreases by 4. Okay, so in an alpha decay, the charge number decreases by 2 and the mass number decreases by 4. Now we'll look at the Q value. Now you know that Q value is the mass of reactant nucleus minus the mass of product nucleus into C square. So this is the mass of reactant nucleus. These two are the masses of product nucleus. So mass of reactant minus mass of product into C square. But I have told you before also that in the question mostly they give you the mass of atom and not the mass of nucleus, right? So instead of mass of nucleus, we can write mass of atom minus the mass of electrons. Now atom X has Z protons, so it will have Z electrons, right? So the mass of nucleus X will be mass of atom X minus Z into mass of electron. Similarly, mass of atom Y minus Z minus 2 into mass of electron is the mass of nucleus Y. Similarly, mass of helium atom minus 4 into mass of electron is the mass of helium nucleus. Okay, so from this you will get Q is equal to the mass of electrons will get cancelled out, and you will get the Q value is equal to mass of atom X minus mass of atom Y minus the helium atom mass multiplied by C square. So this is the Q value in the alpha decay. Okay, you have to remember this formula. The Q value is equal to mass of atom X minus mass of atom Y minus the helium atom into C square. Now, you know that the energy released in a nuclear reaction or in any spontaneous decay is manifested in the form of kinetic energy of the product nucleus. Okay, we have two nucleus here, the nucleus Y and the alpha particle, right? So the kinetic energy is shared between the Y and the alpha particle, and we have already discussed how it is shared, inverse ratio of mass, right? So the kinetic energy of Y will be m alpha divided by m alpha plus my. Alpha means the mass of helium atom, because helium atom means helium nucleus is the alpha particle. So ky is equal to m alpha divided by m alpha plus my into q. Okay, now you know that m alpha, mass of alpha particle has 4 nucleons. Alpha particle has 4 nucleons. So I can write like this: 4 into mass of 1 nucleon, because proton and neutron almost have same mass. So I can write total number of nucleons are 4 and mass of each nucleon is m, then the total mass will become 4m divided by mass of alpha particle is 4m divided by mass of y is a minus 4 into m into q. Now m will get cancelled out and you will get 4 by a into q. So the kinetic energy of y is 4 by a into q, and the kinetic energy of alpha particle will be my by m alpha plus my into q, and that is equal to a minus 4 by a into q. A minus 4 by a into q. Okay, and the ratio, the kinetic energy of y divided by the kinetic energy of alpha particle will be equal to 4 by a minus 4. Okay, now the kinetic energy of y will obviously be less because kinetic energy divides in the inverse ratio of mass. More the mass, less the kinetic energy. So y has more mass, so it will have less kinetic energy. So most of the kinetic energy will be taken by the alpha particle. Right? Now, from this statement, from this result, we can see that the kinetic energy of alpha particle comes out to be constant because A is a constant. Okay, Q is a constant. So the kinetic energy of the alpha particle comes out to be constant. Right? Now, alpha particles are doubly ionized helium. So if alpha particles are doubly ionized helium, what we will do now is we will project it, because it is a charged particle, we will project it in a perpendicular magnetic field. Okay, so suppose this is a perpendicular magnetic field and alpha particle comes from here. Okay, now if alpha particle comes from here, it is experiencing a magnetic force, and due to which it is performing circular motion. We know that the circular motion radius is given by r is equal to under root 2m k by qb. Right, we have studied it in magnetism. Now if the radius is under root 2m k by qb, then if k is constant, obviously the charge is constant of the alpha particle, the field that you have given is constant, the mass of the alpha particle is constant, then the radius should be constant. So there should be only one radius. But the observation shows that there is not one radius but certain discrete values of radius. Why is this so? The reason is the concept of nuclear excited state that we have already discussed. The observation, to explain the observation, we understood or we found out that nucleus also have the excited states just like atoms. So what happens is sometimes a nucleus is formed in an excited state. So if the nucleus is formed in an excited state, see XZA gives YZ minus 2 A minus 4 plus He24 plus Q. Now instead of Q, this time we will write Q minus En. I have already told you in the previous slide. The energy that is released now is not Q but Q minus En. The energy released is still Q, but out of this Q, En amount of energy is utilized for the excitation of the nucleus. Okay, so this En can be E1, E2, E3 depending on which excited state the nucleus has gone, right? Now, whenever the nucleus de-excites, you know that any de-excitation gives you radiation. So whenever this nucleus de-excites, it gives you gamma rays, and whose energy is equal to the energy difference between the first orbit and the nth orbit. Okay, so that is why the kinetic energy now that will be shared between the Y and He24, the alpha particle, is not Q but Q minus En. So this time the Y will get the kinetic energy of m alpha by m alpha plus my into Q minus En, or you can say m alpha can be written as 4 and m alpha plus my can be written as a, 4 by a into Q minus En. Okay, and alpha particle will get a kinetic energy of my by m alpha plus my into Q minus En, and my can be written as a minus 4 by a. Okay, so for different excited states, from here you know that E value will change, E1, E2, E3. So if E value will change, the kinetic energy value will be changing. If the kinetic energy value will be changing, the value of radius will also be changing. If the radius will be changing, then you will see some discrete value of radius, not continuous. Why? Because this En will have some definite value, not one, but more than one, but it will have some definite values. It will be E1, E2, E3, but not anything between that, right? So because the value of En are discrete, that is why the radius that we will get is discrete, not continuous. Radius, there will be only some particular values of radius that will depend on the energy of the excited state of the nucleus. Okay, so sometimes they can also ask you the velocity of the alpha particle or the velocity of the product nucleus. Okay, the velocity of the alpha particle by velocity of product nucleus is my by mhe. This we have already discussed. This is what? This is velocity also divides in the inverse ratio of mass. Okay, now the velocity of y that we get is also called the recoil velocity of the daughter nucleus. Okay, sometimes if they ask you what is the recoil velocity of the daughter nucleus, then they are asking you Vy. Okay, if they even mention you what is recoil velocity, then also they are asking you the recoil velocity of the daughter nucleus. So Vhe by Vy. Now sometimes I've written alpha particle, sometimes I've written He. This represent the same thing. Okay, alpha particle is the helium nucleus only. So Vhe by Vy is equal to My by Mhe. My can be written as A minus 4 into M, and mhe can be written as 4 into m, where m is mass of one nucleon. Getting cancelled, so you'll get a minus 4 by a. So Vhe by Vy is equal to a minus 4 by a. Okay, now we will discuss some important points regarding alpha particle emission, okay, or alpha decay. Energy in the alpha particle emission or energy released in an alpha decay varies from 4.5 mega electron volt to 11 mega electron volt. In calculation, alpha particle has to crop a potential barrier of 21 mega electron volt for their emission. Hence, alpha particle emission cannot be explained on the basis of classical theory because it has to cross a huge potential barrier of 21 mega electron volt. So alpha particle emission is explained by the quantum mechanics model called tunnel effect. This model, this is not in our syllabus, so we'll not go into the details, but we'll understand that the alpha particle emission or the alpha decay is not explained by classical theory but by a quantum mechanic theory called tunnel effect. Now, the energy spectrum of the alpha particle is called line spectrum because it does not give you the different means continuous values of radius, but it gives you only fixed certain values of kinetic energy. That is why we say that it is a line spectrum. Okay, the energy spectrum of alpha particle shows that a nucleus has energy levels like atoms have. So because of this observation only, the concept of nuclear excited state was formed. Okay, and we came to know that nucleus also have excited state by observing these kinetic energies, because we know that, or we have seen that the kinetic energy should have come out to be constant, but it did not come out to be one constant but various constants. Why? Because the concept of nuclear excited state. What happens in nuclear excited state is sometimes the nucleus forms in an excited state, and due to which the energy of the alpha particle decreases. Why it decreases? Because you know that the energy, total energy to be shared between alpha particle and y is q minus En. Now if En changes, the energy of the alpha particle also changes. We have already discussed this. Okay, now so here, when alpha particle emission takes place, gamma rays are also emitted. We have seen that when the nucleus is formed in the excited state, it will de-excite. Now when it de-excite, radiations are emitted, and these radiations are called gamma rays. One more thing that we have to remember is proton is never emitted during any radioactive decay. Proton is never emitted during any radioactive decay. So in this case, alpha particle is emitting during the radioactive decay. So this type of decay is called alpha decay. Now the next type of decay is the beta decay. Now what happens in a beta decay? So beta decay will divide it into two types. One is the beta minus decay and the other is the beta plus decay. So we'll divide beta decay into two types. One is the beta minus decay and one is the beta plus decay. Now we have already discussed beta minus particle are nothing but electron. Then why do we write it as beta particles? To differentiate it from a normal electron. The normal electron are outside the nucleus and beta minus particles are generated inside the nucleus. Okay, but these are also electrons. Similarly, beta plus particles are the antimatter of electron, and that is the positron. So beta minus are electron and beta plus is the positron. Okay, these both are nuclear generated electrons and positron respectively. So first we will be discussing beta minus decay. Okay, now what happens when a unstable radioactive nucleus undergoes a beta minus decay. So beta minus decay, the charge number increases by 1 and mass number remains same. So you have to remember this. You have to remember this thoroughly. In a beta minus decay, the mass number does not change. In a beta decay, in general, in any beta decay, the mass number does not change, but the charge number changes. In a beta minus decay, the charge number increases by 1. Now, think here. Charge number is increased by 1, but the mass number has not changed. Now mass number is what? The sum of the charge number, that is the atomic number, and the neutron number, right? So Z plus N is a constant here. But Z has increased by 1, so N has to decrease by 1. Because the addition is constant. So if this has increased by 1, this has to decrease by 1, right? So N decreases by 1 means a neutron is getting converted into a proton. So inside a beta minus decay, when there is a beta minus decay, then inside the nucleus, a neutron is getting converted into a proton. So we can say that a neutron gets converted into a proton in a beta minus decay. So that means neutron is in excess inside the nucleus. That is why it is getting converted into a proton. So beta minus decay is shown by nucleus which have excess neutrons. Beta minus decay is shown by nucleus which has excess neutrons. Now, if you remember the stability curve that we have discussed in the last class, the neutrons are excess in those nuclei which lie to the left of the stability curve. So the left of the stability curve, so I'll write it here, the left of the stability curve has excess neutrons. So beta minus decay is shown by nucleus which has excess neutrons, that is those nucleus which lie to the left of the stability belt in the stability curve. Okay, so again I'll repeat, beta minus decay is shown by that nucleus which has excess neutrons. That means those nucleus which lie to the left hand side of the stability curve. Now we will find the Q value in the beta minus decay. So we know that the Q value is given by the mass of nucleus X minus the mass of nucleus Y minus the mass of electron into C square, because Q value is what? The energy released in the nuclear reaction, and energy released in a nuclear reaction is mass of reactant minus mass of product into C square. So here, suppose mx is the mass of atom X, my is the mass of atom Y, and me is the mass of electron. Okay, so you will say that the Q value is equal to mass of atom minus the mass of electron is the mass of nucleus. So mx is the mass of atom, so I'll write mx minus zme here, and here I will write my minus z plus 1 me, because the charge number is increased by 1. Now the charge number is increased by 1, that means the electron also has increased by 1. The atom as a whole is electrically neutral. Okay, so my minus z plus 1 me plus me into C square. Okay, so plus me means this is a common here actually. So there will be one minus and this plus, then it will become minus me. Okay, so this and this will get cancelled out, and you will get the Q value is equal to mx minus my into C square. So you have to remember the Q value in a beta minus decay. In a beta minus decay, the Q value is mx minus my into C square. Again, if they ask you the kinetic energy, now you know that in any general nuclear reaction, the kinetic energy is divided in the inverse ratio of mass, right? And the Q value is shared as the kinetic energy, right? Now, beta minus particles are smaller mass compared to Y. So beta minus particles will have more kinetic energy. Okay, so what will be the kinetic energy of beta minus particle? So you know you have two equations. One is k beta minus divided by ky is equal to my by m beta minus. This is the first equation, and the second equation is ky plus k beta minus. This time I will directly write is equal to q minus en, because you know that nucleus is formed in an excited state. Nucleus might be formed in an excited state. If it is not formed in an excited state, just make it 0. Okay, but you know that a nucleus can be formed in an excited state. Now, if a nucleus is formed in an excited state, then when it de-excites, then gamma rays will be emitted. So gamma rays are accompanied by either alpha decay or beta decay. Gamma rays can always be emitted. Okay, so a radioactive substance keeps on emitting gamma rays whenever a nucleus is formed in an excited state. Okay, so now see, K of electron, the kinetic energy of electron is my by my plus m beta minus into q minus En. Similarly, the kinetic energy of Y will be mb minus, that is m beta minus, divided by m beta minus plus my into q minus En. Now, mass of beta minus, so mass of electron is 1 by 1840 times the mass of proton, and this contains so many protons. That means this mass is very small compared to this. So this by this is nearly equal to 0. This by this is nearly equal to 0. So in the case of beta minus, you will say that almost all the q value or almost all the q minus En is taken by the electron or the beta minus particle. So that is why we will say that the kinetic energy of beta minus in a beta minus decay is q minus En. Okay, but still there is some defect here. From this result, what do we see? We see that whenever this beta minus particle is projected in a perpendicular field, beta minus particles are also charged particles. So if it is a charged particle, it will experience a force in a magnetic field. So if you project this perpendicularly in a magnetic field, what will you see? You should see discrete values of radius depending on the values of n, E0, E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, whatever, right? But the observation shows that there is a continuous value of radius this time. In alpha decay, there was a discrete value of radius. Here also we expected that there should be a discrete values of radius, but observation was that there is a continuous values of radius. All types of energy, random energy available for this beta minus particle. Now, how do we explain this? Now, the Pauli was the first scientist who explained this using the concept of neutrino and antineutrino. At that time, he was the first to introduce a new particle, that is neutrino and antineutrino. Okay, so what he said was, whenever a neutron gets converted to a proton, we have seen that in a beta minus decay, a neutron gets converted to a proton, right? So he said that whenever a neutron gets converted into a proton, a new particle is emitted, and that is called the antineutrino. See here, a neutron is getting converted to a proton and one electron is emitted. You have to balance the charge number, right? So an electron is emitted. You have to also balance the mass number. No, electron does not have any mass number. Okay, but one more particle he introduced at that time, and that is the antineutrino. Okay, now this antineutrino has random energy. We have discussed what is an antineutrino, right? It has zero rest mass. It behaves like a photon, but the difference is its energy is not fixed like a photon. Its energy is random. Its energy is random. Okay, so if its energy is random, that means the energy which is available for sharing of kinetic energy between the Y and the beta minus is also random. Now if the kinetic energy of beta minus is random, the radius is also random. Okay, now whenever a neutron converts to a proton, an antineutrino is released. You have to remember this. Whenever a neutron gets converted to a proton, an antineutrino is released. Now, what is the usefulness of this antineutrino? We will also discuss now. See, first we will discuss the properties of neutrino and antineutrino, then we will discuss the importance of it. The properties are, we have already discussed some of these. First is, they are just like photons having rest mass 0. Okay, and energy equal to mc square. The antineutrino and neutrinos are chargeless, that is neutral. That means they are not deflected by electric and magnetic field. They have a spin quantum number of plus minus half. Okay, now considering the emission of antineutrino, the reaction, the beta minus decay can be written as xza gives yz plus 1a plus beta minus plus q plus the energy of antineutrino. Okay, you can also add this one if you want. sometimes the nucleus is formed in the excited state and then it de-excites and gamma rays are emitted. Okay, so now the production of antineutrino along with the electron helps to explain the continuous spectrum, in the kinetic energy of beta minus particles. How? Because now we know that the energy will be randomly distributed with this. Now if the energy is randomly distributed, in that case the radius will be randomly distributed and we observe continuous radius. Okay, so we observe continuous radius. Now the emission of the antineutrino also helps us to explain the spin quantum number balance. Listen carefully. The spin quantum number has to be balanced. So I'll write the reaction again. 1n0 gives 1p1 plus the beta minus particle. Beta minus can also be written as E minus because they are the electrons only, plus the antineutrino. Okay, there has to be even number of spins so that the spins are balanced in both sides. So here if there is one particular spin, then here if there are two spins, if there are only two elementary particles, then you cannot balance the spin quantum number. The spin quantum number can be balanced only if you have even number of elementary particles. So that is why the addition of one more particle, that is the antineutrino here, not only explains the randomness of the kinetic energy, but it also explains the balancing of the spin quantum number or the angular momentum balance. Okay, now again I will tell you what is happening here. How is the kinetic energy random? Again I will explain thoroughly. See, this antineutrino, it can have any energy values between 0 to q. Now the energy released here will be q minus En minus the energy of antineutrino, and the energy of antineutrino is random. I have told you the energy released in a nuclear reaction, initially we discussed it is q minus En. Now it will be q minus En minus the energy of antineutrino. Now the energy of the antineutrino is random. Okay, so the kinetic energy of the beta minus particle will be, you know that all the kinetic energy, all the remaining q value that is available for kinetic energy is taken by beta minus only, because this will not get any kinetic energy. Why will this not get any kinetic energy? Because its mass is very large compared to the beta minus particle. So the kinetic energy of beta minus will be q minus En minus the energy of the antineutrino. Okay, now the maximum energy of antineutrino will be equal to q when the maximum energy will be q when En is 0 and kinetic energy of the beta minus is also 0. That means all the energy is taken by the antineutrino. It is possible. Antineutrino can also have 0 energy. That means all the energy is taken by, this energy is taken by the electron. Okay, the maximum kinetic energy that beta minus can have is q. When will the beta minus particle will have the maximum kinetic energy? That is q. When this is 0 and this is also 0. You know that energy of antineutrino can be anywhere between 0 to q. Now one electron is not getting any emitted, right? Crores and crores of electrons are getting emitted because there are crores and crores of nucleus which are getting decayed, right? So some of the electrons can have kinetic energy q, some can have kinetic energy 0. So electrons can have kinetic energy anywhere between 0 and q. Okay, so the maximum kinetic energy that the beta minus particle or the electron can have is called the end point energy, right? Now because this energy is random, the kinetic energy of beta minus is random. So the kinetic energy of beta minus is random means what? The radius is random. Radius is random means there is a, you can say, continuous spectrum. In alpha decay there was a line spectrum of kinetic energy. Here you will say there is a continuous spectrum of kinetic energy. Okay, so if you see the number of beta particles versus the energy graph, you will see that this graph is random. So you will see that all types of kinetic energies are available. Okay, now let us do this question. In this question it is given there is a beta minus decay and Au198 is converting to Hg star 198. Star means the nucleus that is formed is in the excited state. and beta minus particles are released and the anti-neutrino particles are released. Whenever there will be a beta minus decay, anti-neutrino particle will be released, because in a beta minus decay, a neutron gets converted to a proton. Whenever a neutron gets converted to a proton, we also see the release of anti-neutrinos. Okay, so Hg198 star represents a mercury nucleus which is in an excited state, and the energy of the excited state is 1.088 mega electron volt above the ground state. That means they have given you the value of En. So En is 1.088 mega electron volt. Then what can be the maximum kinetic energy of the electron emitted? Now you know that the maximum kinetic energy of the electron can be Q minus En minus the energy of antineutrino, and the maximum kinetic energy will be when the energy of antineutrino will be 0. So the maximum kinetic energy will be Q minus En. So the first thing that you have to do in this question is to find the Q value. And in a beta minus decay, we know that Q value is equal to mass of atom X minus the mass of atom Y into C square, right? So we will write mass of atom X at atom X is this. Atom Y is this. So mass of atom X minus the mass of atom Y into C square. 1 AMU into C square, you know, is 931 mega electron volt. Okay, approximately, sometimes we also use 931.5 mega electron volt. They will give you in the question. Okay, so from this you will get this Q value is 1.3686. So the Q value will come out to be 1.3686 mega electron volt. Okay, this is the Q value, but the maximum kinetic energy of the beta minus will be Q minus En, right? So Q minus En will be how much? Q minus En will be equal to this Q value minus this energy, 1.088 mega electron volt. Okay, so the answer will be 1.3686 minus 1.088, and that will be equal to 0.2806 mega electron volt. So this is the maximum possible kinetic energy of the electron, but actually it will obviously be less than this. Why? Because there will be some energy of the antineutrino. We have only calculated the maximum kinetic energy. Now the next decay process is the beta plus decay. In a beta plus decay, again the mass number does not change, but this time the charge number decreased by 1 and a beta plus particle is emitted, or you can say a positron is emitted. Okay, now in a beta plus decay, what is happening is inside a nucleus, see here the proton is decreasing but the mass number is same. That means what? A proton is getting converted to a neutron. Okay, so in this case you will say that a proton is getting converted into a neutron. Whenever a proton is getting converted to a neutron, or you will say whenever a neutron is formed, a neutrino is also produced. Whenever a neutron gets converted to a proton, antineutrino is produced, and whenever a proton gets converted to a neutron, or you can say whenever a neutron is produced, a neutrino is also produced simultaneously. Okay, so you will write 1p1 is equal to 0n1 plus beta plus 1 0. Charge has to be balanced and the mass number has to be balanced, and plus 1 neutrino particle. Okay, so the energy here we will write Q minus the energy of the excited state if it is formed in an excited state minus the energy of neutrino. Okay, now the Q value in a beta plus decay. If you want to find the Q value in a beta plus decay, again you will do the same thing. Mass of nucleus this minus mass of nucleus this minus mass of this into C square. But again I will repeat, they give you the mass of atom in the question and rarely they will give you the mass of the nucleus. So you will write it in terms of mass of atom. Now mass of nucleus is mass of atom minus the mass of electrons. So X has Z electrons, Y has Z minus 1 electrons, and then again minus electron, because mass of E plus is same as mass of E minus, that is mass of electron. Okay, because electron and positron have same mass. So from this you will get, this time the electron mass will not cancel out, instead they will add up. So you will say mass of atom X minus mass of atom Y minus 2 times the mass of electron into C square is the Q value. So the Q value this time is mass of atom X minus mass of atom Y minus 2me into c square. In a beta minus decay, the Q value was mass of atom X minus mass of atom Y into c square. In a beta plus decay, the Q value is mass of atom X minus mass of atom Y minus 2me into c square. Okay, but mass of electron into c square, that is the rest mass energy of electron, is 0.511 mega electron volt. We have discussed this before also in the last class. Okay, so the mass of electron multiplied by c square is 0.511. That means 2 into mass of electron into c square will be how much? 2 into mass of electron into c square will be 1.022 mega electron volt. So you will say the Q value will be equal to mass of atom X minus mass of atom Y into c square minus 1.022 mega electron volt. So this is the Q value for a beta plus decay. Now in a beta plus decay also, the energy of neutrino formed is random. So the kinetic energy is random. So the continuous spectrum will be formed. So everything else is same in a beta plus decay except the formula for Q value. The kinetic energy of beta plus will be again Q minus En minus the energy of neutrino. Now there is one more important thing about beta plus decay. In a beta plus decay, we have seen that the proton gets converted to a neutron. Now you know that neutron has more mass compared to a proton. Now if the neutron has more mass compared to proton, now in a nuclear reaction, you know that mass should decrease. When the mass decreases, the energy is released. But here the mass is increasing in the proton to neutron. If mass is increasing, that means energy is required. So in a beta plus decay, the energy has to be first acquired by the nucleus. Okay, so I'll tell you here, as mass increases during conversion of proton to neutron, hence it requires energy for beta plus decay to take place. Therefore, beta plus decay is a rare process. Beta plus decay does not occur so spontaneously as the beta minus decay. It can take place only in those nucleus where proton can take energy from the nucleus itself. But because proton first has to take the energy from the nucleus, then it will perform proton to neutron transition, and only then beta plus decay can take place. Yes, finally the energy will be released, but initially we will require some energy, and the nucleus must provide that energy to the proton for the beta plus reaction to take place. Okay, now which type of nucleus will show beta plus decay? Because in a beta plus decay, proton gets converted to a neutron. That means proton getting decreased. That means it is shown by nucleus which is having excess proton. So beta plus decay is shown by nucleus which has excess proton. Now excess proton does not mean more number of protons. I've told you before. Excess proton means more protons than required. Okay, now which unstable nucleus has excess proton? Those nucleus which lie to the right of the stability curve. Those nucleus which lie to the right of the stability curve shows beta plus decay. Right of stability curve shows beta plus decay. Okay, now calculate the Q value in the following decays. Now we have to calculate the Q value in these decays, and the first question is O19 gives F19 plus E minus plus the antineutrino. So this is the beta minus decay. Now they've given you the atomic mass of oxygen, they've given you the atomic mass of fluorine. Now you know it's a very simple formula. For a beta minus decay, the Q value is mass of atom X minus the mass of atom Y into c square. They've given you the mass, just put it and multiply it by c square. Now 1 mu into c square again is 931 mega electron volt. So you will get the answer as 4.816 mega electron volt. The next question here is the beta plus decay. Al25 gives Mg25 plus E plus the release of a neutrino. So you know that in a beta plus decay, the Q value is mass of atom X minus mass of atom Y minus 2 times the mass of electron into c square. Now 2 times the mass of electron into c square, we have already calculated this as 1.022, right? And here the mass of aluminium is given to you, the mass of magnesium is given to you. Okay, so when you calculate this, you will get to 24.99 0432 minus 24.98 5839 into 931 minus 1.022. From this you will get 3.254. See, in a beta plus decay, finally the energy is getting released. But to start the beta plus decay process, you need energy, because to convert a proton to a neutron, you need energy. And the energy has to be provided by the nucleus. Now the next radioactive decay process is called the K-shell electron capture. It is a rare process and found only in few nucleus. What happens in this process is, as the name suggests, the nucleus captures an electron from the K shell. Okay, so the nucleus captures an electron from the K shell. And what it does with that electron is, the proton combines with this electron to give you a neutron. And we have seen that whenever a neutron is formed, a neutrino is released. So whenever a neutron is formed, a neutrino is released. So inside the nucleus, with the help of these captured electron, the proton gets converted to a neutron. That means the mass number is not changing, but the proton is getting converted to a neutron. That means one proton is getting decreased. So you will say XZA gives YZ minus 1A plus neutrino plus the energy. You can also write Q minus En if you want, because the nucleus can be formed in an excited state also, here also. And plus, this is the important thing here. In a K-shell electron capture, there is a vacancy created in the K-shell. Now, if there is a vacancy created here, then obviously the higher electron will jump to lower orbit electron. Then what will happen? Then X-ray will be emitted. Okay. Now the thing is, the X-ray will be a characteristic K alpha X-ray of nucleus X or nucleus Y. Because whenever the electron is captured, now the nucleus converts from X to Y. So you will say this is the characteristic X-ray of Y. So you must understand this. So whenever the electron is captured, then the vacancy is created in the K shell, and an electron from the higher orbit jumps to this vacancy or to fill up this vacancy, and a characteristic K alpha X-ray is emitted. Now the K alpha X-ray is of which element, X or Y? The answer will be Y. This is very important. They ask you which element K alpha X-ray will be emitted. The answer should be the daughter nucleus and not the parent nucleus. Okay. So this reaction can also be written like this: XZA plus E minus 1, because this electron is taken by the nucleus. So this is an extra elementary particle that has got inside the nucleus, gives YZ minus 1A plus nu. Okay. So this reaction was incomplete because we have not added the electron. See here, the charge number was not balancing. So the complete K capture reaction will be XZA plus 1 electron gives YZ minus 1A, the mass number does not change, plus the release of neutrino, plus the Q value, and minus the energy of nth excited state, and minus the energy of the neutrino, plus the characteristic X-ray of, plus the characteristic K alpha X-ray of Y, not X. Remember, in this question, they are saying you, when the nucleus of an electrically neutral atom, when the nucleus of an electrically neutral atom undergoes a radioactive decay process, it will remain neutral after the decay if the process is. So they've given you different types of processes: alpha decay, beta decay, gamma decay, and K capture. Now you have to think here, the overall there is neutrality because the nucleus was neutral. Okay, but in an alpha decay, He2 plus ions are formed. Alpha particle is what? He2 plus ion. He2 plus ion are formed. That means the product nucleus, that is Y, cannot be neutral because it has to balance this, because the net has to be neutral. Okay, so that means the daughter nucleus formed in an alpha decay is not neutral. Similarly, in a beta minus decay also, the beta minus particle is not a neutral particle. So the daughter nucleus formed cannot be a neutral particle. Okay, in a K capture electron also, the K captured, the electron is captured, right? So if the electron is captured, that means it becomes negatively charged. Okay, the only process where there is no change in charge is the gamma decay. Only in gamma decay there is no change in the neutrality. So in a gamma decay, whenever only gamma decay is happening, in that case you will say that electrically neutral atom, if it performs only gamma decay, it will still remain neutral. In this question, consider the following reactions and select the correct statements from the options that follow. The reaction 1 is neutron converts to proton and an antineutrino is released and a beta minus particle is released. Reaction 2, proton converts to a neutron and the beta plus particles are released. Now, free neutron is unstable, therefore reaction 1 is possible. Correct. Free neutron always decays into a proton. That is correct. Free proton is stable, therefore reaction 2 is not possible. Now, free proton is stable, yes, and this reaction is not possible. That is also correct. Why? Because a proton can be converted into a neutron only if it can take energy from the nucleus. So if there is no nucleus, then a proton cannot be converted to a neutron. So the proton reaction 2 is not possible. Inside a nucleus, both are possible. Yes, inside a nucleus, both reactions are possible, because inside a nucleus, proton can take energy from the nucleus and convert to neutron, because to convert proton from neutron, energy is required and nucleus can give the energy to the proton. Okay, so inside the nucleus this reaction is possible. Inside a nucleus, reaction 1 is not possible, but reaction 2 is possible. No, wrong. Inside a nucleus, both reactions are possible. This is beta minus decay and this is beta plus decay. We have already seen that, right? Okay, so now with this we have come to the completion of our lecture. So in the next class, we will be starting with radioactive decay laws. That is the statistical analysis. In that we will discuss the number of radioactive decay occurring per unit time, or you can say the number of particles or the number of nucleus that remains active after a given amount of time, and how much nucleus has decayed after a given amount of time. Till then, stay tuned for my next class. If you like my video, do hit the like button and share my work with your friends, your juniors, your seniors, and any other student who is preparing for JEE, NEET, and any other competitive exam. Also, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I upload my next video.